Hey there, welcome back. Today we're going deep on a subject that's close to everyone's heart. The blueprint for a life of greatness.
Yeah.
We're going beyond the usual feel-good advice and dissecting the raw,
Right.
sometimes uncomfortable truths about what it really takes to achieve lasting success.
It's fascinating how much of the conversation around success gets boiled down to these bite-sized Instagrammable quotes.
Oh yeah.
But the reality is far more nuanced and frankly more interesting.
Yeah, it's not about shortcuts or magic formulas.
Right.
It's about understanding those fundamental principles that drive true achievement.
Exactly.
And we're going to uncover some surprising insights along the way.
Oh, for sure.
For example, we'll dig into the science behind why getting enough sleep can be a game changer for problem solving, and why saying no, even to exciting opportunities, can be a superpower for focus.
Absolutely.
We'll even explore how that inner critic we often try to silence might actually be our secret weapon on the path to greatness. It's about reframing how we view these seemingly negative aspects of ourselves and turning them into catalysts for growth.
Love it.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with a principle that might seem obvious, but is often overlooked.
Okay.
Life is work. I'm not just talking about your job,
Right.
but about the understanding that anything worthwhile, whether it's mastering a skill,
Sure.
building a business, or nurturing a relationship, requires consistent effort.
It's about recognizing that excellence is a process, not a destination.
Right.
It's about showing up day after day, putting in the reps, and embracing the journey, even when it's challenging.
Yeah.
Think about athletes who train relentlessly for years to reach peak performance.
Okay.
That level of dedication applies to any field where you want to achieve mastery.
I remember reading about this productivity technique called time blocking. Where you allocate specific blocks of time for different tasks.
Right.
It's not just about creating a to-do list,
Right.
but about intentionally carving out dedicated time to focus on your most important work. That seems to align perfectly with this idea of life is work.
Absolutely. It's about being intentional with your time and energy, understanding that you can't achieve greatness by simply wishing for it.
Right.
You have to roll up your sleeves and put in the effort.
Yeah.
And that leads us to another crucial point. The only true failure is not trying at all.
So many people get paralyzed by the fear of failure.
Oh, yeah.
They hold themselves back from pursuing their dreams because they're afraid of making mistakes or falling short.
For sure.
Or not being good enough or
Yeah.
looking foolish.
Exactly.
All of that kind of stuff.
But what if we reframed failure as a necessary part of the learning process?
Okay.
What if we saw it as an opportunity to gather valuable data, refine our approach, and ultimately come back stronger?
Yeah.
Think about Thomas Edison, who famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work."
That's a great point. It's not about avoiding failure. It's about learning from it and using it to fuel our growth. It's about developing that resilience and determination to keep going, even when things get tough.
And this ties into another powerful concept.
Okay.
No one is coming to save you. You are responsible for your own success.
Right.
Stop waiting for the perfect moment,
Yeah.
the lucky break, or someone to hand you an opportunity.
This reminds me of a quote I heard recently.
Okay.
The only person you are destined to become is the person you decide to be.
I love that.
It's about taking ownership of your life, understanding that you have the power to shape your own destiny.
It's about shifting from a passive mindset to an active one.
Right.
Instead of waiting for things to happen, you actively create the life you want.
Yeah.
And that can be both daunting and incredibly liberating.
Right. Because it means you're not a victim of circumstance.
Exactly.
You're empowered to make choices,
Yes.
to take risks, and to forge your own path.
Love it.
And this leads us to another truth about successful people.
Okay.
They understand the power of delayed gratification. They're willing to choose pain now for pleasure later.
Imagine you're trying to learn a new language.
Okay.
The initial stages can be frustrating. You stumble over words, struggle with grammar,
Yeah,
and might even feel like giving up.
totally.
But if you stick with it, push through that initial discomfort, you'll eventually reach a point where you can hold conversations, read books,
Right.
and experience the joy of fluency.
It's like choosing to exercise even when you don't feel like it, knowing that you're investing in your long-term health and well-being.
Exactly.
Or resisting the temptation to buy that new gadget, choosing instead to save for a down payment on a house.
Exactly. It's about making those choices that align with your long-term goals,
Right.
even when they require sacrifice in the short term. It's about playing the long game and understanding that the most rewarding achievements often come from consistent effort over time.
And speaking of things that compound over time, let's talk about the surprising impact of sleep on our ability to solve problems effectively. Now, I know we mentioned this in the intro, but I think it deserves a deeper dive.
Absolutely. We often underestimate the power of sleep.
Right.
We think of it as simply a time for rest,
Yeah.
but it's so much more than that.
Yeah. I used to be one of those people who bragged about how little sleep I needed.
Oh, really?
I thought it was a badge of honor,
Yeah.
a sign of my productivity and work ethic.
Yeah.
But honestly, I was probably just running on fumes.
And missing out on some major cognitive benefits.
yeah.
During sleep, our brains process information, consolidate memories, and make connections that we might not be aware of consciously.
Wow.
It's like our brains are working behind the scenes to solve problems while we sleep.
So it's not just about feeling rested, it's about giving our brains the time they need to function optimally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's actually fascinating research on the relationship between sleep and creativity. Studies have shown that people who get enough sleep are better at generating innovative ideas and coming up with solutions to complex problems. It's like sleep unlocks our creative potential. And it's not just about the quantity of sleep,
Right.
but also the quality. Creating a consistent sleep routine,
Yeah.
ensuring your bedroom is dark and cool,
Okay.
and avoiding caffeine or alcohol before bed can significantly impact how well you sleep,
Sure.
and consequently how well you think.
It's like creating the ideal conditions for your brain to do its best work.
Exactly.
And this idea of creating the right conditions leads us to another principle that might seem counterintuitive, but is incredibly powerful. If you're not turning down exciting things, you're not focused enough.
We live in a world that glorifies busyness
Right.
and constantly bombards us with opportunities.
Yeah.
It's easy to fall into the trap of saying yes to everything,
Yeah.
thinking that more is always better.
Right.
But the truth is, spreading ourselves too thin can actually hinder our progress toward what truly matters.
It's like trying to juggle too many balls at once.
Yeah.
Eventually you're going to drop something. And it's usually the things that are most important to us that end up falling by the wayside.
Saying no is about protecting your time and energy,
Right.
ensuring that you're investing them in activities and pursuits that align with your values and goals. It's about being selective, even ruthless with your commitments.
I remember reading about Warren Buffett's two-list strategy,
Oh, yeah.
where he makes a list of his top 25 goals
Okay.
and then circles his top 5. Anything that falls outside those top 5 becomes his avoid at all costs list,
Wow.
even if they're good opportunities.
Interesting.
It's a powerful way to ensure that he's laser focused on what truly matters.
And that level of focus requires taking radical responsibility for everything in your life. It's about recognizing that you are the author of your story,
Right.
not a passive character in someone else's narrative.
This reminds me of something I struggled with for a long time.
Yeah.
Blaming external circumstances or other people for my setbacks or failures.
Yeah.
It was easier to see myself as a victim of circumstance rather than taking ownership of my choices.
But victimhood is a disempowering mindset.
Right.
It keeps you stuck in a cycle of blame and resentment,
Yeah.
robbing you of the agency to create change.
It's like being trapped in a maze, constantly running into dead ends, but refusing to acknowledge that you have the power to choose a different path.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you take radical responsibility, you step into your power.
Okay.
You acknowledge that you have the ability to shape your own reality, even if it means facing uncomfortable truths about yourself or your past.
It's about recognizing that you're not defined by your mistakes, but by how you choose to respond to them.
And this brings us to a common misconception,
Okay.
that motivation comes before action.
Right.
We often wait for that surge of inspiration to hit before we start working towards our goals. But the truth is, motivation often follows action.
It's like that feeling of inertia.
Yeah.
We tend to stay at rest until a force acts upon us. But once we start moving, even in a small way, it becomes easier to keep going.
Think about exercise.
Okay.
Sometimes the hardest part is getting out the door.
Oh, yeah.
But once you start moving, your body releases endorphins, you feel more energized,
Right.
and suddenly you're enjoying the workout.
And then the next time you think about exercising, it's a little easier to get started because you remember that positive feeling.
Yes.
You've created a positive feedback loop.
Exactly. It's about building momentum through action.
Right.
Start small, take that first step, and watch as motivation follows.
And while we're talking about physical activity, let's not underestimate the incredible power of exercise.
Yeah.
It's not just about looking good or being physically fit.
Right.
It's about optimizing your brain power, enhancing your cognitive function, and building resilience.
People often talk about limitless pills in movies.
Oh, yeah.
But exercise is the real deal.
Really is.
It boosts blood flow to the brain, increases the production of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF. Wow.
Which supports the growth of new brain cells and even improves our ability to focus and concentrate.
So it's like hitting the gym for your mind as well as your body.
Exactly.
It's about sharpening your mental edge and giving yourself that cognitive advantage.
And here's another truth that might be hard to accept at first.
Okay.
There's no such thing as a life without problems. Challenges are inevitable. Right. But instead of viewing problems as obstacles to be avoided, what if we reframe them as opportunities for growth?
You know, that reminds me of a story I heard about a farmer who lost his prize horse.
Okay.
His neighbors came by to offer their condolences, saying, "Oh, what bad luck." But the farmer simply replied, "Good luck. Bad luck, who knows?"
It's a classic story that highlights the power of perspective.
Right.
The farmer understood that it was too early to judge whether the loss of his horse was ultimately a good or bad thing.
And as it turns out, the horse returned a week later with a whole herd of wild horses. The neighbors came back, exclaiming, "Oh, what good luck." Haha.
But again, the farmer simply said, "Good luck? Bad luck? Who knows?"
I love that.
Because shortly after, the farmer's son broke his leg while trying to tame one of the wild horses.
Oh, no.
The neighbors returned, offering their condolences. "Oh, what bad luck."
Right.
But the farmer, unfazed, replied, "Good luck, bad luck, who knows?" And then a war broke out.
Okay.
And all the able-bodied young men were drafted into the army.
Wow.
Except for the farmer's son, who was spared because of his broken leg.
The point of the story is that we rarely have enough information to determine whether an event is ultimately good or bad.
Right.
It's all about how we choose to perceive it and what lessons we choose to extract from it.
So instead of getting caught up in the labeling of events as good or bad, we can simply acknowledge them as experiences that offer us opportunities to learn and grow.
Exactly. And this leads to another important principle.
Okay.
Don't strive to be normal.
In a world that often celebrates conformity, it's easy to get caught up in trying to fit in, to blend in with the crowd.
Right.
But true success often lies in embracing your uniqueness, in daring to be different.
I love that.
Think about all the groundbreaking artists, inventors, and entrepreneurs who refused to conform to societal expectations.
Right.
They saw the world differently.
Yeah.
And they weren't afraid to express their individuality.
It's about recognizing that your quirks, your passions, your unique perspective, those are your strengths, not your weaknesses.
And this connects to another crucial point.
Okay.
Be careful how you define yourself. The stories we tell ourselves about who we are and what we're capable of have a profound impact on our lives.
If you constantly tell yourself, "I'm not a creative person," or "I'm bad at math," you're creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're limiting your potential based on outdated beliefs or assumptions about yourself.
It's like wearing a pair of glasses with the wrong prescription. You're distorting your view of the world and limiting your ability to see things clearly.
Challenge those limiting beliefs.
Right.
Ask yourself, is this story really true? Or is it just an old narrative that I need to rewrite?
This reminds me of something I read about the power of affirmations. By repeating positive statements about ourselves, we can actually rewire our brains and start to believe those statements to be true.
Absolutely. And this ties into another liberating truth.
Okay.
It's impossible to please everyone. Trying to win everyone's approval is an exhausting and ultimately futile pursuit.
It's like trying to chase a mirage in the desert.
Yeah!
You'll never reach it, and you'll only end up exhausted and disillusioned.
Instead of seeking external validation, focus on staying true to yourself.
Right.
Make decisions that align with your values, even if they don't please everyone.
You'll attract the right people into your life.
Exactly.
People who appreciate your authenticity and respect your choices.
And this leads us to a principle that's often overlooked, but is foundational to achieving extraordinary results.
Okay.
Extraordinary results come from repeating ordinary actions.
We often get caught up in the idea that success requires grand gestures or some magical formula.
Yeah.
But the truth is, it's the consistent execution of small, seemingly mundane tasks that ultimately leads to remarkable outcomes.
It's the daily habits, the routines, the seemingly insignificant choices we make day in and day out that compound over time and create lasting change.
Think about building a skyscraper.
Right.
It doesn't happen overnight. It's built brick by brick, floor by floor, through consistent effort over an extended period of time.
And that brings us to a powerful tool for self-improvement that often gets a bad rap, our inner critic.
Oh yeah, that voice in our heads that loves to point out our flaws and fill us with self-doubt. I
Exactly.
think we've all had our fair share of battles with that inner critic.
But what if, instead of trying to silence that voice, we learn to listen to it, to understand its message, and to use it as fuel for growth?
I've always struggled with that idea.
Yeah.
How can something that feels so negative and critical actually be helpful?
Well, think about it this way.
Okay.
Our inner critic is often trying to protect us, to prevent us from making mistakes or experiencing pain. It's like an overprotective parent constantly warning us about potential dangers.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah.
But it can also be incredibly discouraging and prevent us from taking risks or putting ourselves out there.
That's true. But the key is to discern between constructive criticism that can help us grow and destructive negativity that holds us back.
So it's about learning to filter that inner dialogue, to identify the nuggets of wisdom that can help us improve,
Exactly.
while letting go of the self-sabotaging thoughts that hold us back.
Exactly. And here's a powerful perspective to consider.
Okay.
Death as the ultimate perspective. Now, I know this might seem a bit morbid, but bear with me.
All right, I'm intrigued. Let's explore this idea of death as a perspective.
When we contemplate our own mortality, it can have a profound impact on how we view our lives.
Right.
It reminds us that our time is limited, that we shouldn't waste it on trivial pursuits or get caught up in dramas that won't matter in the grand scheme of things.
It's like a wake-up call, urging us to live more intentionally, to focus on what truly matters, and to make the most of every moment.
And it can also help us let go of fear.
Right.
When we realize that we all have an expiration date, it can give us the courage to pursue our dreams, to take risks, and to live life on our own terms.
Because what do we really have to lose? We're all going to face death eventually.
Exactly.
So why not spend our time doing things that light us up, that make us feel alive?
Exactly. And this brings us to another important point.
Okay.
It's never too late to change.
I love this message. It's so empowering to know that we're not bound by our past or limited by our current circumstances.
No matter our age, background, or past mistakes, we always have the opportunity to make different choices, to pursue new paths, and to rewrite our stories.
It's like hitting the reset button and deciding to create a new, more fulfilling reality for ourselves.
Exactly, and that's the beauty of life. It's constantly evolving, and so are we. We have the power to choose who we want to become and what kind of legacy we want to leave behind.
So listener, what changes are you ready to make? What dreams are you ready to chase? It's never too late to start living a life that truly lights you up.
Couldn't agree more.
And remember, as we're talking about making changes and pursuing our dreams, it's important to be mindful of the advice we take in.
Yeah, it's like trying on clothes, you know? Not everything that looks good on someone else is going to fit you perfectly.
That's such a great analogy. It's so easy to get caught up in following the latest trends or blindly accepting advice from self-proclaimed gurus. But what's crucial is developing our own sense of discernment. So it's not about rejecting all advice, but about filtering it through our own experiences and values.
Absolutely.
So we need to ask ourselves, does this advice resonate with me? Does it align with my goals and my unique circumstances?
Because what works for one person might not work for another.
Exactly.
We all have different strengths, weaknesses, and paths to follow.
And even the best advice is just that. Advice.
It is.
It's up to us to take action and apply it in a way that makes sense for us.
You got it.
It's about being an active participant in our own growth, not passively following someone else's blueprint for success.
Absolutely. It's about taking ownership of your journey and making choices that empower you.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the principles of greatness, I want to leave you with a final thought-provoking question.
Okay.
If you could write the next chapter of your life story, knowing what you know now, what would it look like?
What dreams would you chase? What changes would you make?
Right.
What legacy would you strive to leave behind?
Because here's the thing, listener. The story isn't over yet. You have the power to create a future filled with meaning, purpose, and extraordinary achievements.
So go out there and write that next chapter. Embrace the challenges, celebrate the victories, and never stop striving to become the best version of yourself.